Well, good morning, everybody out there. We're getting ready to do a show. So, got Ken cranked up, and we'll be live on the radio as well as Facebook and YouTube. And what else am I on here? Let me tell you. I'm not even sure. But at any rate, we're coming to you on several platforms. Hey, we're on Twitter. So we'll get a show going here and talk a little bit about this and that. See if we can solve some world problems. See if we can keep us out of World War III. I hope everybody had a good week. If I don't get to say that at the end of the show. And
because no matter what, no matter where, you need the truth. And specifically, if you're listening from Newport Richey to St. Petersburg or from Tampa to the coast, you can get the answer on FM 93.7, always on AM 860, online at theanswertampa.com, and depending on where you are, on FM 93.7.
If you're a pastor, church leader, or concerned Christian who wants to see families strengthened and our children saved from the pollution they're being indoctrinated with, come to the Families Under Fire Conference on Tuesday, May 17th at the Plant City Strawberry Festival Grimes Center. Speakers throughout the day will equip you to make real change in your church and community to protect children and families. Tickets are just $25 and include lunch.
Go to allpropastors.org. That's allpropastors.org.
The following program is sponsored by Bay Area Medical Can Care Clinic.
Odyssey. Here is your exclusive AccuWeather forecast.
Partly sunny skies for today with a high of 89. Tonight, a moonlit sky with a low 73. Mostly sunny tomorrow with a high of 87. And plenty of sunshine Tuesday with a high 89. Plan with confidence. Download the redesigned AccuWeather app today. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Gregory Patrick for AM 860, The Answer.
Good morning. This is Dr. Bill. That was a nice little entry tune there, Ken.
I like it. It's very snappy.
Yeah, I really like that. That's a good one. So we're doing a radio show here this morning. I'm Dr. Bill, your radio MD, and we're coming at you on Salem Broadcasting and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and my little website, drbillradiomd.com. So you can see me live and in the flesh, or you can listen with your radio, 860 AM, and what's the FM, 1997 something or another?
Well, we got 93.7.
93.7, there you go.
That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I got it now. So, fascinating week. We got more reports on Naomi Judd. You know, she apparently committed suicide by gunshot wound, self-inflicted, and I didn't realize what a big killer the suicide is. There were 46,000 suicide deaths in 2020 in the United States, and 1.2 million attempted suicides. That's a pretty good number. And I guess for young people, it's one of the major leading causes of death. And it affects all ages, of course. And so physicians and counselors have to be aware of when people are thinking about this, because a lot of them can be helped. And, you know, we've got good medications now. It's not like 100 years ago where there were no antidepressants and no therapy to speak of. So
And there's no shortage of agencies to call if you need help.
Yeah, the things you look for are people making a will, getting the house and affairs together, unexpectedly visiting friends and family members, buying a gun or a rope or a piece of hose. And you say, what do you use the hose for? Well, you can use that to pipe the exhaust from your car into the interior of the car, into the cab of the car, so you can die by carbon monoxide poisoning. Of course, writing a suicide note. And this I did not know. Visiting primary care physician. A significant number of people see their doctor within 3 weeks of committing suicide. That is a revelation to me. Of course, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I'm not in the front lines on this, but and there's also a preoccupation with death, isolation and withdrawal, few family, friends, or members, a lack of support, and an emotional distance from other, lack of humor, focusing on the past or the future, and haunted and dominated by hopelessness and helplessness, and these are the things we look for. So there's a lot of the things that we can do now, Ken, that we can ask people if they're struggling, physicians, family doctors, psychiatrists, counselors, and say, are you thinking about killing yourself? Or are you thinking about killing anybody else? And I think part of the problem, like this kid that went out and killed 10 people up in Buffalo, is he probably didn't have anybody really talking to him and interacting with him and checking to see if he was okay. And you got to do that with teenagers, You got to. So we have to ask these questions. Do you want to kill anybody? Do you want to kill yourself? Do you have any friends, any relationships? And what would you do if you felt suicidal? If you do feel suicidal, do you have a plan? We want to know if you have a plan. Because if you have a plan, that's more serious.
Oh, yeah, certainly. You've taken it to the next step, absolutely.
Yeah. And so we also look for things like family history of suicide, behavior patterns that would indicate suicidal ideation, isolation, distance from family members and friends, not interacting as we all should interact with each other. We're herd animals, so it doesn't mean we have to like each other, but at least we can go outside and yell at each other.
Do you think the pandemic had anything to do with the elevated numbers in suicide? A lot of people being isolated for so long.
I don't know. I know that the homicides went up during the pandemic. So it's probable. It's possible because if you're isolated from your friends and for adolescents, being part of a gang, part of the crowd, and your identity, your autonomy, and your self-awareness and self-sense is greatly involved with the peer group that you're in, and that's how we become socialized over time, is by interacting with our fellow peers. And if the teenagers don't have that option because of the pandemic, I'm sure that would increase and heighten the suicidal ideation, I would think, wouldn't you?
Certainly. And I also heard that that's why kids join gangs in the inner cities. It's not because they want to sell drugs. I mean, they want to belong to something.
Yeah, you want to belong. And we do it as adults, too. You've got your group that you interact with. I'm sure that there's radio broadcaster groups, and of course I'm a doctor, so I interact with the doctors, and we interact both with the people at the station, and so we have our different groups that we interact with, and it's important that we stay connected. And humor is important too.
What about if you're a friend of somebody and you notice some changes going on? What should you do? I mean, should you talk to them or talk to a mental health professional and try to ease them there that way? I wonder, what should you take if you're like the mother of a son who's showing some depression that you didn't expect or haven't seen before?
Well, I would first talk to them and say, you seem pretty sad and withdrawn. Or are you thinking about hurting yourself or killing yourself? Or have you tried? And take a look at their wrist, because teenagers will cut their wrist, and and then cover it up with a long sleeve shirt. And you see changes in behavior and pattern. Also, kids that are developing a psychotic type of mental illness like schizophrenia, they'll hear voices, which is part of schizophrenia. People don't have visual hallucinations with schizophrenia. They have auditory hallucinations, and they hear God or the devil telling them to do something that is obviously illogical, like, go out and kill your son. Abraham was a schizophrenic.
Okay. Wow.
And he would have
That's
been,
got to be weird, hearing voices in your head. I've never,
yeah,
I can't imagine what that's like.
And if it's the other thing you have to look at is the family history and the family mental history. So my family has a lot of mental problems. Both my parents at different times in their lives tried to commit suicide. And my sister, right below me, she has schizophrenia, so she's been disabled since she was a young adult, and with auditory hallucinations. And you get a flat affect where you're not really emotionally, the things you say and your emotions are not connected, if you know what I mean. So you say, oh, look, a nuclear bomb dropped and you're pan-faced, and then anhedonia, which means just a lack of love of life. Schizophrenia is a tough disease because these people know they're sick and they're miserable. And the medications for schizophrenia haven't been that great over the years. They're getting better now, Ken, but the antidepressants have come a long way with the serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. So we've got a lot out there. And I've been on sertraline, which is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, for, 25, 30 years now. It really helped me. It's changed my life. And people still have this stigma about being on medication. I don't want to be dependent on medication. I don't want to get hooked and all that. Well, you don't get hooked on antidepressants. There's an emotional withdrawal with it, but there's no physical withdrawal. So it's a great field, and the psychiatrists have taken things, and the drug companies have manufactured things and brought it to a new level. So, but it's too bad about Naomi,
Yeah, I know. It's very sad.
Yeah,
Make great music, though.
Yeah, and her daughters seem to be doing okay. They seem to be working through it. But I guess they've been around it for decades because their mothers had problems for years now. And I guess it's not unexpected, although I think it was Ashley went outside. She was talking to her mother, gave her a hug, went outside to do something, came back in, and her mother had shot herself. Unbelievable.
Why did she have the gun? Do you think the family would have made sure she didn't have access to the guns if she was having that kind of trouble?
Well, I think that's the other thing, too, that you have to look at is there a gun in the house? If there is, and you have somebody who's disturbed, who is either suicidal or homicidal or psychotic, having emotional problems and breaks, and isolated, get the weapons out of the house. Get them out. That is because that's a real high risk factor, Ken.
Yeah, but it's not the only way to do yourself in. I mean, look at Robin Williams. He just hung himself in his bedroom.
Yeah, and I've had friends that have done that. I had one friend back in pre-college. Well, I was like a sophomore in college, and I dropped out for a couple of years. And he disappeared for 2 weeks. Nobody knew where he was, and his sister went out to their country house, and he had hung himself in their elevator shaft. The body had been there for a couple of weeks, so that's not uncommon. But I'm surprised that Miss Judd used a gun. That's not typical of women. Usually they'll take pills, less violent ways to kill themselves. So she must have been planning that for a long time, thinking about it. And speaking of death now, we hit 1 million COVID deaths, the landmark 1 million number, and I guess the president had some kind of a ceremony and, called every death a terrible thing. But you've got to remember that we report things a little bit differently. And of course, the Chinese press jumped all over this and said, well, you know, the United States is supposed to be the world leader on this, and they have the highest number of deaths from COVID. I'm thinking the Chinese probably don't even know how many people they got, much less how many have died from COVID. But you know, they're calling it, the Chinese press, the Global Times, which is the English newspaper that's put out by the People's Party, the Chinese Communist Party. The headlines read, "A million COVID deaths expose U.S. systematic failures as Americans call for more than flags at half-mast to save lives." I haven't heard anybody calling for anything. Maybe I missed.
Neither have I, no.
And of course, they go after Trump, and then Biden, too. They went after both of them. I guess they thought Trump was downplaying the threat. Meanwhile, he was implementing the warp speed, and we got that vaccine that we have, the mRNA vaccine that Pfizer and COVID developed. By the way, the Chinese don't have that vaccine. They can't do it. They don't know how to do it. I mean, they don't have the facilities or the ability to distribute it, even if they do have it.
So they just lock everybody in their house for a month and a half.
Well, they've got the Sinovac vaccine, which is an inactivated COVID virus vaccine, but it's way less effective. And, of course, getting people to take the vaccine is another thing, too. And, yeah, they just lock people down in their houses, and who knows how many people died from starvation or suicide or a heart attack, and no ambulance would come pick them up. So it's they got a real problem. I mean, we're transparent, so everything that we do, we just share it with the world. We don't care, you know. That's why everybody likes Elon Musk so much, because he doesn't care. I'm buying Twitter, and here's what I'm doing. He'll give you the blow-by-blow description. And I heard one news reporter following him around and was just amazed, because Elon was just talking to him like he was his chief operating officer, you know, and telling him everything. And pretty cool, though.
Well, I hope he gets it. I hope he does. Right now, I guess it's on hold for some reason, but...
Well, there's a bunch of phony accounts. They got bot accounts. Bots are virtual robots that they use to set up accounts to make, you know, puff up their chest, make them look bigger than they are, and push up the price of the stock. And so now, with the stock market in a tumble, not a bad tumble, but a tumble, and the prices of stocks, including Twitter, have gone down, Elon's positioning himself for a better deal, and I can't blame him. So if he can find that there's 10% of the accounts that are not real, well, he'll have to go back to them and say, well, I'm discounting the price by 10% because you're phoning up your numbers here. You're not being honest with me. I think he's going to go ahead and buy it. I just think that he's playing the smart game and taking a close look at what he's buying. You don't want to buy a pig in a poke.
Well, I think he said he'd offered $56 a share and is down to like 46 right now. So yeah, he should come down. He shouldn't pay that much.
And he probably won't.
No.
So Biden called 1 million COVID deaths a tragic milestone, an irreplaceable loss. Well, I feel for people who have lost a family member, but 1 million people, that's way less than 1% of our population. It's like 1/10 of 1% of the Chinese population, and it sounds like a big number, but we have to put it into perspective. It's like $1 trillion budget, and we talk about hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on something, and people are all upset, and it's like pocket change if you look at $1 trillion budget that the country has. What, 5-6 trillion now? We've gone up to that. That's a lot of money. And
it's a ton of money we owe.
And 100 million is like 1/10 of 1% or 1/100th of 1% of $1 trillion. I mean, come on. This is not that we should be wasteful, Ken. I'm not saying that. We should definitely keep an eye on every penny we spend, but
we talk about billions now like we used to talk about millions.
Yeah. And a trillion is still a big number, but, 5 trillion, 6 trillion, won't be long, it will be 100 trillion.
And what's going on in North Korea? All of a sudden, they're talking about apparently a COVID problem. They must have a huge COVID problem if they're talking about it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And I would guess that the South Koreans are quietly reaching out to them and saying, hey, why don't you let us help you and get some vaccine up there? But June is the new president. He is not in favor of kissing up to Kim Jong-un. Moon, the outgoing president, the one who just left office, he was playing kissy face with Kim Jong-un and the North Koreans, and June is very conservative, and he says, we're playing up to the wrong partner here. Let's go to Japan and make friends with them because they're like us, even though there's still animosity about the occupation in the first half of the 20th century. The Japanese came in and occupied Korea and treated them like stepchildren, which was better.
Get over it,
Well, yeah, the women are keeping it alive because of they heard from their mothers and their aunts and their grandmothers about the use of Korean women as comfort women for the soldiers. So now how serious that was, I don't know. And whether or not you got paid to be a comfort woman, or were there any perks that went with it? Could you go to Tokyo and have a better lifestyle? And it's all hard to say, but you get the women riled up, and they're not going to be happy, and they're going to remember that for a long time. So at any rate, we've had 1 million COVID deaths, and remember now, Ken, if you die from, like my patient that died last month from the colon problem, where he had an ischemic colon, and the bowel was infarcted, it was dead, there was no blood flow to it, and he had to have his colon taken out, and he died. Well, he also was COVID positive, so we have to report that as a COVID death, even though he wasn't sick with COVID, because I had seen him in the office, and he's the one who gave me my case, and he was coughing and so on and so forth.
Well, that will skew the numbers, absolutely. Yeah.
That will skew the numbers, but we report things differently, and even though people say, well, not all the states are reporting accurately, you know what? Most of the states most of the big states are giving their numbers pretty much to the Center for Disease Control, so that tallies and tabulations can be maintained. Now, I'm sure there are some states that phony it up a little bit, or that just don't care because the numbers aren't that great. But we keep pretty good numbers, guy. We keep pretty good numbers.
Do you recall, don't mean to hit you with this right off the top of your head here, but how many folks died in the last pandemic in 1917 or whatever it was?
Worldwide, it was over 60 million, and the United States was hit pretty hard because we are an open society, and people travel a lot in the United States. By the way, they called it the Spanish flu, but it probably started in Texas, Oklahoma region, and was spread by soldiers who were going over to Europe for World War II and the post-war rebuilding of Europe. So we probably lost 2 or 3 million people.
So we're doing better compared to that one, for sure.
Oh yeah, but they, what did they have then? They didn't have vaccines. They didn't have IV fluids. They didn't have antibiotics. So the Haemophilus influenza bacteria was the secondary infection that people were getting, and the reason it got its name, influenza, is because the bacteriologists and the scientists associated it with the flu, influenza. So they called it Haemophilus influenza. And that was a secondary killer of people. But there were stories of people getting on the subway uptown at Times Square and feeling not too bad. And by the time they got downtown to Wall Street, they were dead. They died on the subway.
Oh, man.
And there were people dying on the streets, and the nurses and the doctors and the paramedics and all the workers. You can still see pictures of them in New York City and other places with their masks on and carting off the dead bodies.
So we're doing much better this time.
Oh yeah, we've come a long way, and I'm sorry that people die, but guess what? We're all going to die, you know. And, I was talking with a friend of mine, and he said, you know, come on, this is 1 million people. We're such a huge country. This isn't a drop in the bucket. This is not going to. In fact, it's probably going to play better for things like Medicare, because a lot of the older, sicker Medicare patients are the ones who died, and so there's less of a demand, a drag on the Medicare system. I mean, that's
end life expenses. That's right.
yeah. I mean, that's sort of a morbid way to look at it, but so at any rate, you know, we have test kits every corner, every drugstore, my office, everywhere you can go and get tested for COVID. So anybody gets a runny nose, they run and get a COVID test, and if it's positive, well, then we report it, and you know, we tell our doctor, I got COVID. What should I do? And they call me, and you know, give them medicine or whatever. But so we have huge numbers relative to the rest of the world. Why? Because we got the test kits. You know, that doesn't.
Yeah, we don't know what Russia has. I mean, we don't know any of these numbers.
No, and you know, the Russians aren't going to expend a whole lot of money on test kits. They don't care.
Yeah.
And the Chinese, I'm sure you have to go to a testing station. I doubt you can get it just over the counter at the drugstore. Maybe you can, but if you do, there's probably a cop there, and he's probably going to grab you and pull you over to a testing station, because if you test positive, they're going to lock your ass up.
That's right. Shouldn't be out of your house. Exactly.
Yeah, and you'll get fined, you know, for being out of your house. So we're such a unique country. It's really amazing to me how people who live here can denigrate the country and say what a terrible place it is. They just don't know. They just haven't been around. Oh my. Kind of sad.
Well, you know what? I'm still running into people when I ask them, "Have you got your booster?" They say no, and I don't understand that.
I don't either.
Get your booster.
And well, what's happening?
That's something still to be played with. I mean, people think it's gone, but it's not gone.
It's not gone. Now, the Omicron is not as deadly as. In fact, the actual number of deaths and hospitalizations have been dropping for the past few months, even though the number of positives has gone up with the Omicron. But it's one of the family practitioners at the hospital. He was saying he doesn't treat his patients for COVID. He just tells them to take some Tylenol and fluids and rest, because he thinks the Omicron is just like a bad cold. And he said he hadn't seen the numbers that medications really help. Well, I have, because I've been in the middle of this treating people, and I know that medications do help. I know that, especially when you get older, or if you have chronic problems, diabetes, hypertension, lung disease, rheumatoid arthritis, all these sorts of things. If you come down with the Omicron, we've got the new antiviral over medication that you can take by mouth. It's 2 times a day for 5 days, kind of like the flu anti-flu medication. But this is 3 pills 2 times a day, and it's very effective. I took it when I was sick a few weeks back, and you know, it made it easier to get through it. So
we have somebody wants to get to your office. What's the number to call?
727-384-6411, 727-384-6411, and we set up a telemedicine visit if you don't want to come in. And, you know, if you're positive for COVID and you're not feeling well and you want some treatment, we'll get it for you. We've got it. And, you know, the use of things like dexamethasone and prednisone to cut down on the inflammatory response and secondary infections, reducing those with a short burst of antibiotics. I mean, there's a number of things that we can do now. We know a great deal about this virus and its effects and how to treat it. And we figured that out early on, and now we've got the medications and the armamentarium to go ahead and treat you at home with medications that you get prescription. It's not over the counter yet, but you get a prescription from your doctor sent to the pharmacy, and go pick it up, and it's free, Ken.
That's my favorite price.
Yeah, that's the best prices. One that doesn't, you know, I never met a free lunch I didn't like.
That's very true. Yeah. You know what, Doc? I think it's time for a cup of coffee. What do you think?
Yeah, you going to throw out a question today or no?
I am. I'm going to put a question out right now. This is for, as we do every Sunday, we give away 2 Dr. Bill, your Radio MD coffee mugs. They're beautiful. And you'll win 2 of them if you can answer today's question. Be the first person at 877-969-8600 to answer the following question. What mile marker? We're going to use a COVID mile marker. What mile marker in COVID-19 did we pass as a country this week? If you can tell us that, the first person at 877-969-8600 with the correct answer will win those 2 coffee mugs. Again, what mile marker, COVID-19 mile marker, did we pass this week as a country? 877-969-8600. Here come those calls. Doc, get your coffee.
Oh, buddy, I'll be right back.
With SRN News, I'm Michael Harrington in Washington. Shoppers out on a weekend afternoon and a retired police officer working security were among the 10 shot and killed at a Buffalo supermarket by a white teenager who authorities say was motivated by racial hatred. Police say Peyton Gedron shot in total 11 black people and 2 white people in a rampage at Tops Friendly Market. The 18-year-old broadcasted the shootings live before surrendering to authorities. Authorities in Chicago say a 16-year-old boy was fatally shot near the Bean in Millennium Park yesterday. The Chicago police say he was shot in the chest about 7:30 last night near the popular tourist attraction. It's not clear why. And almost 3 months after Russia invaded Ukraine, its military faces a bogged-down war and the prospect of a bigger NATO. Both Finland and Sweden want in. This is SRN News.
Dr. Bill for Bay Area Medical, located at 6399 38th Avenue North in St. Pete, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. Full-service clinic with x-ray, heart imaging, ultrasound, stress testing, and minor surgery. We provide quality health care in a warm and friendly atmosphere. We are multilingual, well-trained, and certified. Most American insurance and new patients accepted. Bay Area Medical, home of Can Care, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411.
Dr. Bill here. With social distancing and sheltering in place, telemedicine is here. Bay Area Medical Home of Can Care Clinic offers telemedicine for new and established patients. You can see me without an in-office visit. Schedule an appointment at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. When it's time for your appointment, type this web address into your cell phone or computer web browser, doxy.me/Bay Area Med. A cell phone works well and is all you really need. For computers, you need a web camera and speakers. We'll give you this address when you call for your appointment. We accept most insurances and travel insurances. Canadians and visitors, please call your travel insurance company for an authorization number prior to the visit. Co-pays and deductibles apply. Self-pay rates are available. Just ask. We accept credit cards, PayPal, and Stripe. 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411.
Dr. Bill here. My friends at St. Pete MRI and Sleep Diagnostics are your best choice for state-of-the-art MRI, CT, and sleep studies. Quality unsurpassed. 25 years experience makes St. Pete MRI my go-to imaging center. Self-pay rates are competitive and out-of-pocket cost a fraction of a hospital. Conveniently accessible from both sides of the bay at 750 94th Avenue North, St. Pete, near the Gandy. 727-577-2220, 727-577-2220.
If you owe the IRS back taxes, then get ready to pay up. The IRS has giant private collection agencies actively tracking down folks who owe the IRS. So if you think dodging them was stressful in the past, it's going to get a whole lot tougher. Optima Tax Relief has this advice. Don't wait. Solve your tax problems now before it's too late. Optima Tax Relief works to stop the demand letters, stop the aggressive collection actions, and stop the IRS collectors from targeting you. Ask Optima about the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands, and nobody knows this program better than they do. Optima is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, and they get results, having resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Get a fresh start. Call today for your free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
If you're a pastor, church leader, or concerned Christian who wants to see families strengthened and our children saved from the pollution they're being indoctrinated with, come to the Families Under Fire Conference on Tuesday, May 17th at the Plant City Strawberry Festival Crime Center. Speakers throughout the day will equip you to make real change in your church and community to protect children and families. Tickets are just $25 and include lunch.
Go to allpropastors.org. That's allpropastors.org. AM 860, The Answer. Online at theanswertampa.com. Odyssey. Here is your exclusive AccuWeather forecast.
Partly sunny skies for today with a high of 89. Tonight, a moonlit sky with a low 73. Mostly sunny tomorrow with a high of 87. And plenty of sunshine Tuesday with a high 89. Plan with confidence. Download the redesigned AccuWeather app today. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Gregory Patrick for AM 860, The Answer.
And I'm back. This is Dr. Bill. I'm back. This is Dr. Bill. I got Ken by my side. You there, buddy?
We're here, Doc.
All right. I heard the music and then it stopped, and then I was like, wait a minute.
Just my fat fingers, that's all.
Oh, yeah, I thought of it. I thought I had another couple of seconds to plug back in, but no, you plugged in before I could plug in. Oh my God. At any rate, so here we go. Now the National Endowment for Democracy. I did not even know this existed, but I came upon this, and they have several people in their organization that are looking at the effects of the pandemic on democracy, because as you and I both know, the bureaucrats and the politicians love to take advantage of this kind of a crisis so they can grab more power, and so they're highlighting the global grab for power and what they call kleptocracy. I guess that's when you steal the government if you're in it. You hijack the rights of the people, and the big question: how can global leaders in civil society stem authoritarian measures amid the COVID-19 pandemic? And of course, the most egregious seems to be the Chinese locking people in their house, but we've seen a lot here too. I mean, the New Yorkers are also scared to death, and my wife's niece and our grandniece and nephew and her husband, they wouldn't even go out of the house, and they lived in Queens. They were basically locked down for a year and a half, 2 years. Craziness. And there really wasn't any evidence that the lockdown did anything, Ken, to stop the spread of the virus.
Well, in their defense, they got hit first.
Yep.
They got hit hard.
Yep.
When this all started.
Yep.
So they didn't really know what they were dealing with yet. So back then, I would say probably in New York and New Jersey, in that area, the lockdowns were probably warranted until they figured it out. But it lasted way too long.
Yeah, well, I mean, it went on way too long, and they didn't take advantage of the resources that were offered to them. When Trump set up the big hospital ship, they wouldn't use it. They would not use it.
Yeah, I know, that was pretty silly.
It just didn't make any sense. And the Javits Center, they just wouldn't use it because they didn't want anything to do with the Republican Party and the Republican president. So this is an interesting organization. It's an independent, non-profit foundation dedicated to growth and strengthening of democracies around the world. And it's the National Endowment for Democracy, and apparently it gets support from both sides of the aisle, so it must be a good thing. I didn't even know it existed. Did you ever hear of that?
I've never heard of it, no. No, not even close. The only endowments I ever hear about are on PBS.
Yeah. Yep. So meanwhile, back in Europe, Ukrainians are holding off the Russians. Who would have thunk it? And there's a couple of factors involved. One is that they've been preparing for years because they know the Russians, and another factor is that a lot of the older Ukrainian men and probably their military leaders all trained under the Russians, so they know the Russian tactics. And now that we're pumping armaments in the West, in the United States, Western Europe, and the United States are pumping armaments into the Ukrainian army, they're getting back on an equal footing against the Russians. I think the Russians are having a hard time with their tanks because the Ukrainians have all kinds of offensive weapons now that they can take the tanks out with. And, you know, the Russians are big on tanks.
What's the name of the U.S. Shoulder-based weapon they're using? I can't remember the name of it.
It's
whatever it is, they're starting to name their children after that.
I love it. It's like the Sidewinder or something like that.
Lancet or something. I don't know what it is, but they're naming their children after the missile.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we've agreed to allow the sale of 350 Abrams tanks, our big badass tank. It's the meanest thing on the battlefield, and it's hard to take it out too because it has layers of like clay flaps that are hardened, and it absorbs the shell shock when the shell hits the tank, so they're hard to take down. It's pretty cool. The Russians don't have anything near that. Their T-72 is not the same as ours. So we're going to sell 350 to the Ukrainians, and we've already sent them over 35, 40, 45 of these tanks so they can start training on them. And as you pointed out, the shoulder-launched anti-tank missiles and anti-aircraft missiles, and also the anti-ship missiles. You know, the Ukrainians have sunk a couple of the Russian ships there. That's a big deal. I think
it's also very embarrassing for the Russians. They have got to be, the people who are in charge there under Putin have got to be thinking about taking him out.
Well, there's some intelligence that I've been reading about that they are thinking about that, and I guess they're starting to out him some. You know, his family, he's protected from the public eye, and he has some daughters and probably has some illegitimate kids and a wife and a mistress and so on and so forth. But you never heard about them because he did everything he could to protect them, and even if a reporter would ask about them, all of a sudden that reporter would disappear. Or the publication would shut down. So it's a scary thing, and you know, this guy, if he did ever get the power that he wants, it would be a very dark day in the world. I mean, this is like Hitler and Stalin all over.
I think he sees himself as Stalin.
I think that he probably admires what Stalin did, yeah. I think you're right.
You know who I admire?
Who's that?
Ked Nasjak of Safety Harbor. He is our winner. If Ked, it's K-E-D, so I'm not sure if it's a male or female.
Keb, congratulations, and thanks for listening to the show. We love you guys out there.
You have won 2 Dr. Bill, your Radio MD coffee mugs. They'll be on their way in the mail shortly, and that's for answering today's question. What mile marker, what COVID-19 mile marker have we just passed as a country? And it's 1 million deaths was the correct answer. So congratulations, Ked. We'll get that out to you right away.
You got it, and we'll send them out to you. If anybody didn't get their mugs, I had the wrong address or forgot because I had too much beer the night before.
Well, I've got a record of all of them that we've ever given away, so if you've got a...
Just call and let Ken know, and we'll send it back out. Now, don't cheat.
Absolutely, yes.
I mean, I don't care about the cost of the mugs, but it's that dang $10 of shipping expense. And then I gotta stop at the post office and dump the box in there. And I'm going to take some.
It's a beautiful mug. It really is a nice mug.
Oh, it's a nice mug. Yeah, and you know what? The big package box at the post office that you can use after hours, it gets stuck. And so now I got to get some WD-40 and oil that thing up. I'll probably get arrested, you know, for that.
Tampering with the mail. That's right.
Tampering with the mail. So the Ukrainians, I mean, this is just amazing. It's just amazing. I'm sure that we have boots on the ground, but I don't think they're probably at this point they're not actively engaged in combat, more teaching the Ukrainians how to use equipment and special ops for intelligence. And of course, Elon Musk, he's donated his for free his wireless network, Starlink. And I guess Putin said he was going to send some killer satellites up to take out Elon's satellites that are over the Ukraine. And Elon said, if you need any help launching,
I've got some rockets this morning.
SpaceX is standing by for you.
I think he also said, you go ahead. I've got more satellites than you've got anti-satellites. So
Oh, yeah.
You go right ahead.
And then Putin's making threats to have him killed. And he says, well, if he gets me, I'll see you. Nice knowing you.
I love that guy. I love Elon.
He's a character.
He is, yeah. But he's doing some great things. He will go down in history as one of the greatest in space exploration.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's commercialized it. You can,
exactly.
If you got the cash, you can probably jump on a spaceship and take a ride with him.
Plus, he's developed a way to have a rocket land itself after we've used it. I mean, this is a real cost cutter.
Yeah, the
industry.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So he can send up a capsule or a spaceship or a Tesla. He's got a Tesla that's orbiting the Earth. Did you know that?
I think it's headed for Mars, actually.
Is it going to Mars?
It's going somewhere. I think it's going to Mars, yeah. It's a convertible Tesla.
Yeah, it's a convertible, and he's actually got a humanoid-like figure in there, I guess so that if any aliens drive by, they'll wave. But did you hear about the baby formula crisis?
Yeah, what is going on there? I guess there are only like 4 companies that make all this stuff for everybody.
In the United States, yeah. So what happened is the big factory, the number one producer is an Abbott Pharmaceutical. They own one up in Michigan, I believe it is. And there were 3 baby deaths last year, or 2 baby deaths and 1 sick baby from a bacteria called, what is that thing called? Chronobacter. Chronobacter was renamed. Just when I learned all these names, Enterobacter, they changed it to Chronobacter. This is a really ubiquitous bacteria. It's in our bowel, it's in the soil, it's everywhere. And so 3 kids came down with this Chronobacter infection, which is very devastating to infants. And so then they said that the formula came from this factory that Abbott has, this plant up in Michigan. And so they told Abbott, you better start checking your factory. And so they checked, and they actually did find some surfaces that were infected with the Chronobacter, which apparently can live for a long time in adverse environments. But Abbott says, well, we did the DNA on these, and it's not the same DNA as the one that killed these kids. So we don't think it's us, but we'll take measures to clean up and make sure that it tests negative before we go back into production. Well, the FDA said that to them, that you have to do that. So they shut down, and they were making 43% of the baby formula in the United States. So
how long have they been shut down?
Oh, gosh, 2 or 3 months now, I think.
Really?
And so there's and they're starting to talk about ramping back up, but it's still going to take several weeks to get back on the production line and shipping and all that. And so is the FDA responsible for the shortage? Well, I think Abbott would point the finger at the FDA and said they acted too slowly because they knew that there were problems a year ago, and they didn't force the company to do anything about it. And so the FDA is saying, well, no, it's Abbott's fault because they didn't adhere to the good manufacturing principles, and so it's going back and forth. And if there's a car crash, is the guy that's drunk, is he the only responsible party? Well, what about the bartender that served him the liquor? Does he have any responsibility in it? And so it starts rippling back through the ranks and through the various entities that were involved in manufacturing and distribution and clearing of this, and the FDA's oversight and so on and so forth. And apparently a whistleblower back in December of back in October of last year, had sent a report in saying that they felt there were some not good manufacturing practices going on. Of course, when you have a plant that big and you're making basically a production line product, I guess it would not be easy to be 100%, but you got to try. And at any rate, hopefully they'll ramp that back up. You know what's amazing is basically it's most of these formulas are milk whey. They're milk proteins, and they throw in a little soy, and they throw in some fats and some flavoring and some sugar and all that. So I don't know what the problem is, why we can't just use milk. I don't get it, but what happened to the breast? I mean, you would think this would be a great opportunity for nursemaids to make a comeback.
What I'm upset about are the folks who are running out there when they find a couple of cans, they buy it and then they sell it on the internet for like $100.
Really?
Why
didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of that? So now the White House.
You're just not an entrepreneur, I guess, there, Doc.
I'm not a good entrepreneur, no. So apparently the White House held a conference this past week on the baby formula shortage, and one of the people in the administration who's big on one of the secretaries of something or another, cabinet head, was talking, and she just pretty much dismissed the shortage and said, well, there's a greater existential threat, and that's global warming, and that's what we need to focus on, not on baby formulas and baby clothes. Unbelievable.
Really? I hadn't heard that. That's pretty sad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I saw it on TV.
That's the worst spin I've ever heard.
Well, I mean, these guys are idiots. I mean, the Democrats they've alienated a third of their own party. That's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, the numbers aren't looking good for the Democrats, so that's, good for the other side.
We hope.
Yeah.
So at any rate, there are other countries in our trading circle, Mexico, Chile, Ireland, and Netherlands, that also manufacture, and the English have said they'll send some over for us if we need it. And I just said, I'll let the little boogers starve to death. Who cares? No, I wouldn't do that.
No, I guess Ireland is sending a whole bunch over. But with the shipping congestion, it'll get here around, next January.
Well, no, it'll get here in a week, but it'll sit on the dock because there's nobody to unload it.
Right, no truckers are taking it to the stores.
Nobody wants to work and get them unloaded. International longshoremen, they're holding out for more cash, I guess. They're like, baby formula? We don't care. So, at any rate, it looks like we got that crisis. At least it's before the public, and somebody's working on something to resolve it. So hopefully Abbott will. Oh, by the way, Abbott makes 43% of the U.S. Baby food or baby formula, and guess what the shortage is? 43%. United States.
Well, there you go.
There you
I'm
go.
surprised it's taken them so long to get that factory backed up. That's a long time to be cleaning a factory.
Yeah, it is. It is, and but I would say that if you have to meet regulatory requirements, there's going to be a lot more red tape once you screw up. Even if it's unintentional, even if you've implemented the best manufacturing practices. How do you go into the bathroom with every individual and make sure they've washed their hands after they did their business? Because it's a bowel bacteria, so we carry it around in us. Adults carry this within their colon, and I don't know. It's hard to do, especially with the pandemic and the shortage of workers. And I'm sure that they had to reach out and get who they could to come to work to keep the factory up and running. That would have been a priority, I would think, for a big company like Abbott, because it wasn't like the babies quit eating during the pandemic. So
this is true, yeah. So. Who knows what their problems are, but it just seems like a very long time to clean the factory and get it back up.
Yep. And it's a problem.
As a newsman in me, makes me think there's more to the story somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure there is, and And they're probably, who knows, maybe Abbott donated more money to Trump than to Biden's campaign.
It's also possible they may be having trouble getting the ingredients they need with the supply chain.
I don't think so. There's plenty of cows wandering around. They get, most of it's just cow protein anyway. So cow milk, they tweak it a little bit to make it a little bit more like breast milk. Thin it down a little bit, change the fat content a little bit, but pretty much the same thing.
3 minutes, Doc.
Oh my! So Poland is ramping up, and now Poland's going to be spending 12% on military this year, and the criticism is that they'll have to borrow the money, and the Polish leaders say, if we have to go deeply into debt to rearm and modernize our military, then that's what we're going to do, because they're looking at the Russians, they're just two doors down now.
So they're a member of NATO, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, we got their back.
Well,
and Finland, too, pretty soon, from what I've read.
Finland's coming in, and the Swedes are talking about it. The Finns are tough. They're tough people. It's cold up there, though. They're way up there.
Well, they got a long border with Russia.
Yeah, and I think half of Finland's above the Arctic Circle. It's kind of like Alaska. They got reindeer there. And when Christmas is over, there's a sale on reindeer meat in Finland. So, yeah, that's how you know. So that marks the end of the Christmas season in Finland.
The reindeer meat white sale in January, yeah.
But the Finns are pretty educated people. Even the Lapps, who are they were kind of like the Aleuts, the Eskimos in northern Finland. They all were educated. They'd be herding their reindeer, and they'd have to go to school too, the kids. So I don't know if is reindeer herding, is that very profitable? I don't know.
Maybe in Finland.
The reindeer milk could probably be used for baby formula, because it's a good source of protein for kids. So maybe we should,
1 minute.
Maybe we should import some of the reindeer over here and see what we can do. Caribou. Did you know that the caribou in northern Canada have the longest migration of any animal on the planet, of any land-based animal? Did you know that?
No, how far do they go?
2,000-3,000 miles. They go across northern Canada, yeah.
Doc, we got about 30 seconds left. You want to push the business a little bit? We are here to get some folks to see the doc, because he's the best in the state of Florida, if you ask me.
Well, I appreciate that. And we're making the donuts for you. We're at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. We got the COVID thing covered. We do non-invasive cardiology and general medicine. We take care of minor things and take a skin cancer off of you. And we'll do it. Just about anything you want. Bye. Love you.
Thank you for listening to Dr. Bill, your